For early access plus exclusive content, facilitated discussions, live one-on-one Q&As, and more, become a patron at patreon.com/BrucePointset. What's up, everyone? It's Bruce. Trying a new thing today with the story logs. It's a little thing I've been teaching my creative nonfiction classes, where it's basically just logging the story behind the story. So recording kind of the thoughts as you cover something, or reflecting on the thoughts as you cover something. Just, it adds a little bit more layer to the events that everyone sees. So with this, we're trying something new, and as you can see off camera, where, just maybe we'll do this more, maybe we won't, but we just kind of reflect on events or stories. And, yesterday happened to be a particularly eventful one. So I'm not going to bury the lead here. I had really a throwback incident at Lloyd Center. So for those who don't know, yesterday, the December 18th, I was hosting a panel, Black News Future panel with Max Smith, Donovan Smith, Jenny Moore, part of the Soul Restoration Project at the Albina Art Center. And, in between, I was going to go to, or I should say, I was going to go to an event after that. And in between, I just stopped at Lloyd Center so I could, grab a bite to eat, maybe do some Christmas shopping. I will say I've been a few months since I've been at Lloyd Center, and whew, you go, especially as someone who's like grew up going to this mall and then going to, seeing this food court with like 4 places open, and, everyone, a line wrapping around the block at Chicken Connection, with, a dead Dairy Queen and a Dickey's barbecue pit. Whew. It's it's a trip seeing just how things have changed. So, anyways, get something to eat, go downstairs, looking for pillows. Anyways, this dude like looking at me like walking down, just kind of like walking down the lower level past the ice skating rink, and like, why is someone scoping me out? But whatever. So, anyways, I finally walk past him, and hear him like he's like yelling at me now. So keep walking, because I'm like, you know, people are dealing with their issues. It is what it is, but I'm not trying to be a part of anything today. But he follows me, right? So finally, I just like, he's still yelling. I turn around, and he gets in my face, accuses me of being an undercover cop. Again, like, okay, this guy's having mental health issues. Yikes. But, it's not harming me or whatever. It's harassing me, but whatever. But he keeps going. And then, I try to wave him off or whatever, but he's still following me, still, just yelling again that I'm a cop, comes up to me again, leans into my chest and speaks into what he thinks is the wire I must be wearing. And I'm just, admittedly, like, I am caught off guard here. This was not what I had in the plans for the day. But I try to keep walking, go past one store. He just turns and looks at there's like two women walking. I was like, hey, this guy's a cop. This guy's an undercover cop. So on, so on. And then finally, he comes back in and he makes it. You know, it's like, why is this guy calling me a cop? And he makes it very clear what he was really saying, or at least what his rationale was. Because he started talking about, you look white, you sound white, you talk white, you dress white. They, peppered in some fats and some fuck yous in there just for, good measure. And he just kept saying that and kept following me back. Cause I go down basically I'd gone from, he started scoping me out as I was coming from the ice rink, which is kind of like in the middle of the bottom floor of the mall for those who don't know. And then I'd walk basically to the end of one side. And then I started going back the other way because the store I was looking for wasn't even on that side. And I was, I got caught up in this, but he's still following me, right? Still following me, talking about, man, you look white, you sound white, you fat, fuck you. You look white, you sound white, you're fat, fuck you. Just in my face down the entire way, back to the ice skating rink, where he then pulls out his phone to like either get my picture or record me. I'm not sure. And at that point, I'm just like, actually, it's probably not the greatest form right now, but I pull down my mask. I'm vaccinated. And it's like, okay, cool. Let him know you saw Bruce Points at the mall, I guess, whatever. And he we keep going. He keeps following me finally to, like, I'm not sure if I'd even told him like the store I was actually looking for, but it was like, yeah, go stop for the store, whatever. Like, okay, whatever. I'm just continuing to walk. He's continuing to walk. I'm thinking like he's finally like getting some separation and walking away. And then of course he's like accusing me of following him. He's like, yeah, stop following me. I'm gonna beat your ass. And it's like, wow. Okay. And finally he goes his way, I go mine. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't jarring. Again, I'll emphasize that he more than likely was experiencing mental health issues, and I really do hope he gets the help he needs. That said, he did pick me out for a reason. And everything he said was something I've heard from people who were definitely in their right minds before. You know, this stuff I was used to, especially in middle school, high school. You grow up in Lake Oswego, again, you talk white, not really a fashion person or whatever. And yeah, I sound the way I sound, I move the way I move. But the thing is, like, it's not just something, these are not just things I heard in high school or, from random people. Even in my professional life, like, this is stuff I've gotten from people who are, their primary work, the things they're most known for is in the realm of Black liberation. You know, in some cases, some people who may listen, you listening to this right now may revere and respect. And they've made it very clear, in these particular cases that I wasn't welcome in, their liberation spaces for, well, essentially matter down to like, I didn't exude the type of Black masculinity that was, acceptable for them. And I would make a note of that because we'll be revisiting that later. But needless to say, it was it was a moment. Just I haven't had I don't think I've had all the things, like I said, everything he touched on was something I've heard before, but like he hit all the greatest hits and just one after another, one after another, one after another. And it's like, even if you're cognitively know, it's like, oh, this dude's having some issues. This is weird. This is off. Like, it's still, it's one of those things where if you have like, you've had issues with your identity, it's like a scene out of a horror movie, right? When your own people are coming at you in like the Disney movie villain fashion, and really in this like bizarro world Karen situation where I have another black man accusing me of being an undercover cop, even though I just came from this panel where literally I'm literally in conversation with Mr. Defund the Police. And we'll get to that in a second. And he's just he's continuing his, he's picked me out again because of all these things that I definitely vividly remember being made fun of for in high school. And you don't, again, it's the cartoonish, like over the topness of it. Someone like yelling at you, being like, "You're white, fat, fuck you, look up, fuck you," and following you around, trying to get you on camera to quote unquote expose you. Although I'm curious if that video went out because again, like, you saw Bruce points out at the mall, cool. Maybe I can use it as like promo for my show if like he actually knows people. But I digress. It, you know, no matter what you tell yourself, it's rough. Like you're just talking about, hey, you're any person, you're tired, you're stressed out, it's the holiday season, everything that comes with that. And then the last thing you're expecting is, oh, welcome to this blast from the blast from the past, this junior high nightmare moment, except you know as you actually, I guess, envisioned the nightmare, not the usual slick passing stuff that cuts you, but is again slick, it's in passing or it's in jokes, it's whatever. Back in the day, no, this is someone who is just like, is literally screaming at you, is threatening you, accusing you of being the same enemy you're against and on all kinds of records, and using that as like the guise of again just harassing you up and down a mall, trying to make it clear that you are not welcome in this space. That, yeah, it laughs to myself though, thinking I deal with all these white people in workshops who, to them, being attacked is being corrected. Being attacked is having to take any kind of an order from a black person who's in authority. And like they have no idea, in addition to all the racism that I talk about, that we try and educate on, that we experience, there's also the other side effects of white supremacy. this idea that, Black people are a monolith, this idea of just dividing us on the long and making us paranoid of each other. This dynamic where we do to each other worse than sometimes well, not sometimes, most of the time, we do worse to each other. You know, I mean, of course, there probably are undercover cops all over Lloyd Center, but all the people you could suspect, you walk by one person's like trying to say, is that your partner or something? But he was also not chasing him around. So yeah, it's a lot when it's your own people. But on a brighter note, let's rewind and go back to the panel. Black News Future. The exhibit had a great turnout. The hunt celebrating 160 years of Black journalism in Oregon. Shout out to Daryl Grant. And then we had the panel with Mac, Jenny, Donovan. They had a bunch of gems, a bunch of stories. We had a good conversation. I can't wait to share the video with you all. But I think the portion that really stuck with me was the audience Q&A. I said it was a good discussion with light tension. But admittedly, that's because my instinct is to, take a lot of things defensively upon first reaction. If it's not just the highest of praise, and that's a flaw of mine that I got to work on. But you had some questions, you had some requests for clarification, specifically on the white gaze, which we talked about. One person even thought, well, we meant the white gay community as opposed to the white gaze as in GAZE. But that got clarified. So hooray, English. Anyways, you had questions, you had a request for clarification, and some things that admittedly upon my, my initial reactions, my jumpy reactions, felt like criticisms. And then you had one case where a man, directly challenged me to press the sponsor for the money to actually support a true Black media mentorship program, which is not a terrible idea. I'll say that the person representing the sponsor was not there at the event, so it did put me in an awkward place on the stage, but I get it. And again, it's not a terrible idea. Anyways, there were a lot of points of discussion there, questions about why we get caught up in Portland, at least in this natives versus transplant argument or debate or tensions, and just all these other disconnects, whether professionally or interpersonally in Portland's Black community. I will say what was kind of nice about the audience Q&A was it was a mixed crowd, but it was between the Black people on the panel and Black members of the audience, it was a intergenerational Black discussion. So you enjoy doing that for what it's worth. What's funny is, again, I admit my instincts to feel like, is someone saying something about me and someone criticizing, is it fair? Do I need to say something? People are watching. Do I just take it? All that goes through my mind, and it sometimes comes out defensively. But in a lot of the cases during that audience Q&A, if you really unpack it, it was just a lot of us loudly agreeing with each other. I guess. That said, though, there were a few things that I've been reflecting on since then and really wondering if they were, moments where someone actually trying me. So one was a question where the subtext was clearly, you're on the stage as Black media, but why aren't you covering or giving more coverage to my Black event? There's also a comment, actually a couple, about why there isn't more coverage of all the Black excellence, quote unquote, Black excellence stories throughout the state. In those cases, I can see exactly why I got defensive because one is the person who's been trying to push the Blacktastic Adventure, a show dedicated to telling Black stories from all over Oregon to a lot of crickets. It's a little frustrating for other people to be like, well, why aren't you covering these other things? Why aren't you covering these things that you are covering and publishing and putting out on a larger platform than your own? And then, of course, with just the coverage, I I don't know. We can't be everywhere. A lot of us aren't getting paid to do things and are struggling as is. For those who haven't, for those who weren't there, but we'll see the video later, I spend a lot of time talking about funding for a reason because I want people to be able to eat off of this and I want it to be sustainable. But I digress. I feel like the probably more constructive response to constructive criticism, very fair constructive criticism, is thank you, and I'm glad we're connected now and we know the issue at hand. So let's do what we need to do going forward because we're on the same page and let's build. Now, I'm pretty sure that's not what I said. I'll have to watch the tape, but that probably would have been if I could rewrite it, the opportune thing to say. That said, we did have, again, the guy who challenged me to, step to the fiscal sponsor and get them to put some real money towards a Black journalism mentorship program. And we talked later. He actually gave me some good advice about researching institutions' budgets when you go into negotiations. And all in all, whatever I may have felt or how defensive I may have been, people really enjoyed the event. Some good events were planned, some good seeds were planted. And I met some new people who might be able to help me manifest this robust, sustainable, independent Black media infrastructure that these panels were designed to promote. So I'd say it was a success. Again, even if I'm a little overly sensitive at times or overthinking things. So I would go to Lloyd Center from there, and you already know what happened. So let's skip ahead. So it's later that night. I go to Spirited Justice's screening of Colin in Black and White. And I'll do movie reviews or show reviews, but give you a quick one here by saying I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I know it got good reviews, but sometimes people give good reviews to anything talking about Black stuff because they don't want to sound, they don't want to be on the wrong side of history, or they don't want to, judge Black creations with the humanity. So they just, instead of panning it universally, they praise it universally while essentially not watching it, maybe not even watching it. You think with some of these reviews, with the overuse of the word important, but I digress. So, there were plenty of ways this could have come out corny or preachy or just meh. Instead, the young Cap actor was great. I felt like I was sucked into the story the whole time, even though I knew how it was going to end. And it's something I want to share with more people. I want to have screenings with students. But I think what was great about Spirited Justice's event, in addition to having the screening, having a bunch of snacks and food, Amber, who runs it, held a space for discussion afterwards. And I told them, like, I'm not usually the one to kick off these group sharing moments, but I jumped right in there and I told them it was just what I needed after Lloyd Center. People make grandiose statements like that in these spaces because they don't know what to say, but I really meant that. And I know, like, before dispersing, Amber was asking about calls to action. You know, as small as it seems, I just left again wanting to show this to more kids. It's something I wish I had had growing up. I wish I grew up with more of these images of the diversity of Black masculinity. And honestly, this generation's understanding, as flawed as it still is, that Blackness is not a monolith, which brings me back to the Lloyd Center incident. I work with kids and I tell them that no matter how old I get or what I do, people can always smell Lake Oswego on me, my Lake Oswego upbringing. It goes, obviously, it comes out in how I sound, how I dress, how I move. But it's just, it almost feels deeper than that. Still, sometimes you need reminders so you don't just start rattling this off like it's a cliche. You gotta keep saying it like you mean it. And I will say, this guy at Lloyd Center, Bizarro World Karen, he gave me enough gas for at least the next few years. But when I really think about, when I really dig a little bit deeper into this Lloyd Center incident, it's not just a class thing. It's not just a Lake Oswego thing. It's really a commentary on Black masculinity. Throughout my life, I've noticed that these supposed markers for how Black you are, they have a particular flavor when it comes to Black men. You get the standards. You get you also have the things that, afford you some exceptions. Obviously, your propensity for violence or sexual conquest, all the, typical toxic masculinity stuff, but also your ability to perform for large, money paying white audiences, either on a stage, a court, or a field. Growing up, basketball was my safety valve. It's easily where I got the most validation as a Black male. And I mean that both from, white Lake Oswego to my Black peers in Black rites of passage and across the board. I still remember my first week of fourth grade, and I was going to this new school, Forest Hills Elementary in Lake Oswego. No one would talk to me, and I milled around the playground at recess just waiting for the bell to ring and hope no one was staring. Then I got invited to play basketball one day. I showed out, and it was like night and day. I was still painfully shy and socially awkward, but everyone knew I was the kid who was good at basketball, and that was enough to make some of the other things tolerable. Fast forward to eighth grade, and mom decides to put me in a Black Rites of Passage program. The Prospective Gents Club, and specifically their eighth grade theater group, the Simba Changa. Again, no one would talk to me, and I couldn't be more out of place in my Costco sweats and Skechers slip-ons. But then we had our first game night at Friends of the Children. All those game nights ended up being basketball nights. And just like fourth grade, I showed everyone what I could do. I even remember singling out a kid who was around my size and definitely the best player there, at least besides me, and humbling him all night. Again, I didn't get any less shy or socially awkward after that night, but I had my peers' respect as an athlete, and that made all the other awkward things tolerable. Obviously, I was never anywhere near the athlete Colin Kaepernick was or is, but it's those memories that make me understand viscerally why his desire to be a quarterback over everything else was such a strong theme in the show. The feeling of personal accomplishment and validation you get from succeeding at sports is unlike anything else. It erases so many of these things that might otherwise haunt us. I look at people like Steph Curry or the late Kobe Bryant and think, in another timeline where sports didn't work out for them, would they not be getting teased for being quote unquote white for their interest, growing up with maybe not, I guess in Kobe's case, like super wealth, but still both sons of former NBA players, like all the ways that they subvert, you know, these ideas that we think of or that we associate with traditional black masculinity. But they're some of the coldest basketball players ever, so it doesn't matter. I certainly didn't have a pass from getting made fun of by any means growing up, but I also know how much worse it could have been if I didn't play basketball. Fast forward to today, and like many, I put on some pandemic weight, and the days of being in basketball shape are a distant memory. So when this kid at Lloyd Center is repeatedly telling me I dress white, I talk white, I'm fat, fair or not, it's a reminder that the days where I could walk into a Benson with my LO uniform on and get love from gents from the school, or those days are long gone. Again, fair or not, those days where I could routinely perform black masculinity through basketball carry more social currency than anything I do in activist or black media spaces. They carry more currency than any of the work I do with black kids. It doesn't matter if I'm coming fresh off a stage with Mr. Defund the Police and on my way to an organization that also loudly calls for defunding the police. I still look like this and sound like this. So I still have to prove I deserve my respect as a black man or deal with the consequences. Last night was probably as intense and concentrated as it's been in decades, if not ever. That said, I'm not even considering changing how I show up. I have no idea who needs to see me to know that their own existence is valid, but I do know that when I don't let incidents like last night break me or make me more cynical, I'm showing people a way to do things differently. I'm showing that not just can people like me exist, but we can weather these attacks on our very identity that many of us fear. At any point, we might be tried on some of our deepest insecurities, but it's going to be all right and we live on. Chances are I won't do it at the scale of a Colin Kaepernick, but if I do what I'm supposed to do and let's just keep going, then that might do something for one or two kids coming up behind me. And if that's all I do, I've done my job. Thank you for watching. Please like and share and subscribe so you can stay up to date on all of the latest videos. Thank you.